At the outset, I remain thankful to Sri Aurobindo Society, Ministry of Culture, and those who have helped me in narrating the lesser known part of Rishi Aurobindo or Sri Aurobindo as we know. The first thing is that Sri Aurobindo's transformation in Alipur jail is, I feel, overtly linked to his departure to Pondicherry. Most people would be very happy to understand how is this transformation linked to his departure. They cannot be understood in parts. They have to be understood in continuum or continuity. Sri Aurobindo gathered certain spiritual experiences in Alipur jail, and I would not like to narrate on that part because enough has been written on it. But you will be surprised to know that his life sketch, which he wrote for Dilip Kumar Rai in the early 1930s, leaves out this part of his experience. It is yet not known why Sri Aurobindo left out that part. The bulletin that is published by Sri Aurobindo Ashram on 4 occasions throughout the year. This is the 150th year of Sri Aurobindo's birth anniversary, and the bulletin that was published on the 15th of August had published that biography written by him, a life sketch, which does not include this transformation. I had inquired about it. I spoke to few people in the archives and the scholars, but they also could not throw light on the issue as to why he missed out on this part. Did he do it deliberately, although he had written on it profusely in his book Tales of Prison Life? Originally it's Bengali, Kara Kahini. Now, this is a historian's assessment what he could think or he could have thought, but I would like to focus transformation relating to departure from Bengal, from direct politics, and how he remained in that particular phase of thinking, forgetting politics, detaching himself from politics. It is generally known that Sri Aurobindo had departed from politics, but as my record goes, as what his fellow revolutionaries like Motilal Rai, where he lived before departing to Pondicherry, had profusely written what he did after 1910. What Motilal Rai has written is very, very interesting, because he said that Sri Aurobindo until 1914 was directly involved in revolutionary and armed politics from Pondicherry itself. He had people in Bengal, and Charles Teggett was always wary about his activities, and he at one point had reached Chandanagar and had raided Motilal Rai's house and different places to find out what could be Sri Aurobindo's activities, the revolutionaries' activities, although it was known that he was living a life which is detached from politics. The general misconception is that he had become a monk. No, throughout his entire life he was never a monk. He had written and he had said that I live here as a householder and I have no relations with someone becoming a saint or a monk or anything of that sort. To narrate Sri Aurobindo between 1910 and 1914 is a lesser known part, which people mostly do not know. Sri Aurobindo was giving political advices after his transformation from this spiritual transformation from Bengal to Pondicherry, he was giving political advices, which Motilal Rai writes that when Charles Tegart raided my home in Chandanagar during the 1914s, I had burnt most of the political orders that I received from Pondicherry, and they came in code words. Most people will be surprised to know that the code languages used to be a book page from Swami Vivekananda's Raj Yoga, and they used to send, he used to send the advices through code words. Like, I will give you an example. What Motilal writes is that 5, 6 or 8 means if 5 is B, then 6 is O, and M and B could be again 5, 1, 5, 2. So, it means bomb. So, you use bomb. That is the way they used to send, and the British intelligence tried to decodify these words and failed miserably. Till 1914, Sri Aurobindo, the lesser known that we do not know, was highly involved in politics, but later on he started publishing Arjya Patrika, and then he lost interest. So, he said, he wrote a letter to Motilal saying, now you will have to stop our Tantra and you will have to go for Vedanta. So, these were also code words, very interestingly. So, the general view is that Sri Aurobindo's leaving of politics, his spiritual transformation, that is definitely something very individualistic, that is something very innate to him. He had written about it, but he had not explained. He had spoken in his Kara Kahini about the spiritual transformation, which Abhijit's film would like to narrate through by collating historical facts. But the spiritual part has mostly been left unnoticed because that had remained within him. I, as a student of politics and studying Sri Aurobindo for a number of years, I understood that Sri Aurobindo had written that he had received an Adesh, the Adesh of going to Chandanagar and then to Pondicherry. Both were French enclaves. What I feel is that, going through documents, is that Sri Aurobindo was at the back of his mind, he was very much into revolutionary activities. He did not leave it. He was basically shifting his political base. The base which was in Bengal, in Calcutta, in Subodh Mullik Square, Raja Subodh Mullik's house in Wellington Square, which is now lying in a dilapidated condition and is not being taken care of properly, that from that place the British intelligence started poking their eyes into it. They wanted to know what was happening. So, Sri Aurobindo had no other option, because he was incarcerated, as you know, and that was a conspiracy which I feel they couldn't find any evidence against him, and he and Hemchandra Kanungo, these were the only two persons who did not make a confessional statement. And Sri Aurobindo had later said that I am not going to answer anything to the British who had occupied our country, even if they put me to the gallows. So, in one place, as I remember, he said that I was an idealist, and anyone who is an idealist has the capacity to face the gallows. So, he was ready to face the gallows, but wouldn't bow down to the British. He and Hemchandra Kanungo, everybody gave some sort of statement, confessional statements. As you know, that is the process of the trial of the court. But he was shifting his base. This shifting of base is little known. How he shifted? He went his revolutionary base first to Chandanagar. There also he felt uncomfortable, and finally to Pondicherry, and into Pondicherry the lesser known Sri Aurobindo. That way he was continuing his activities till 1914. This part of his life is thoroughly unknown to most people. Most of the people do not know. They only consider him that he left politics and that is the end of it. It is not that. He was very much into revolution, and his unconscious drove him to the fact, even when he said about the 5 dreams while India was getting independence, on the eve of independence, the shorter version of his 5 dreams, the first line says, "We have received freedom but not unity, and this unity can only be achieved through revolution." So, revolution remained with him till his last days. That was in 1947. I would like to read out, since there is a lot of confusion, I will just read out 1 or 2 lines what he himself wrote about his public life when he went to Pondicherry. He wrote 4 letters between 1910 and 1911. In those 4 letters, he clarified transparently, he said, why he had left politics. This is the one. "I left British India in order to pursue my practice of yoga undisturbed either by my old connections or by the harassment," please mark my words, "or by the harassment of me, which seemed to have become a necessity of life to some police officials. Ceasing to be a political combatant, I could not hold myself bound to pass the better part of my life." He says, "I could not hold myself bound to pass the better part of my life as an under trial prisoner, disproving charge after charge made on tainted evidence too lightly accepted by prejudiced minds. Before discontinuing activity," now he comes to the revolutionary part, "before discontinuing activity myself, I advised my brother nationalists to abstain under the new conditions from uselessly hampering the government experiment of coercion and reform and wasting their own strength by the continuance of their old activities. And it is well known, to use the language of Madras Times, that I have myself observed this rule to the letter in Pondicherry. I have practiced an absolute political passivity. I have strongly and repeatedly expressed myself against the circulation of inflammatory literature and against all wild ideas and reckless methods as a stumbling block in the way of future resumption of sound, effective and perfect action for the welfare of the country." These facts, the facts as I was telling you, that he had become a saint, he had left politics, he had taken himself away from revolution, he was not concerned what was going around, is thoroughly wrong. He was very much into politics, only that he said very accurately, "I propose, with your indulgence, to make shortly a clear exposition of my views and intentions for the future, as we leave no misinterpretation." So he has given this statement. There are 4 such statements. I would like to restrict myself only to one. Anybody interested to know about Sri Aurobindo should read these 4 statements which he gave to Hindu paper and different other papers during this period, 1910 and 1911. You will be astonished to know Sri Aurobindo was even discussed in British Parliament. There was huge debate between the Secretary of State, Lord John Morley, and Minto, Viceroy. So Minto was not ready to accept that Sri Aurobindo out of jail could be safe. He said no, his only place is jail, because he is one of the most dangerous person that British India at that point of time had to reckon with. And Morley somehow said, no, we are not ready to accept this. Minto was looking for a deportation, he was looking for an extradition, he was making all efforts to bring back Sri Aurobindo into British India and put him under trial. But the British Parliament, he had 2 friends, Sir Ramsay MacDonald, who went on to become the British Prime Minister in the late 1930s, and Keir Hardie, as you know, one of the founders of the Labour Party. So they lambasted the entire British Parliament for 1 year, and they went on to say that how could British India hold out of itself such a person of high caliber and intellectuality. It is their poorness in thinking that Sri Aurobindo could not be brought back, is not going to be back to British India. Now comes the they offered him. So deportation was disallowed, extradition was disallowed, there no question at all. Sri Aurobindo was offered, please come back to India. And I have gone through certain papers written by Nolinikanta Gupta. He was offered even a place in Darjeeling to live, but Sri Aurobindo refused. So he did not escape. Please I want to remind you, he never escaped. He departed, he went away, he did not come back. There is no escape. They offered him a place to stay in Darjeeling. He said, it is a house arrest. I will not accept it. So his transformation and departure, the spiritual transformation and the material departure, these are in continuum. We cannot overlook the second part by going through the first part. Thank you very much.